But let's start from the esoteric part of tasawwuf, the esotericization of tasawwuf. What these people did is that they enter into tasawwuf because tasawwuf is pure, and tasawwuf is it resembles in their interpretation a spiritual path, that in their interpretation, in this esoteric interpretation, requires no Sharia, because that must be conditional to them. So there is people like Inayat Khan in the United States who had Sufi tariqas in which you can be a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or anything else that you want, and you can still be a Sufi. Okay. Now that's, for example, a very typical prototype case of this Freemasonic Sufism, and the influence of that over Sufism. So there is now literally thousands of people who believe that you can be a Sufi, and it doesn't matter, you don't need to be a Muslim. This is outrageous. This is outrageous. Because in fact, what one can say is that tasawwuf is the application of the Sharia. And you can say the Sharia, the application, the living of the Sharia is the spiritual path. And the esoteric, according to them, is our fulfillment of the Sharia. This is how we elevate ourselves spiritually. And what the spirituality does, it commits you. It gives you the guidance, it removes the fears for you to fulfill the Sharia. So you cannot disassociate one from the other, because in fact, interior and exterior are intimately connected. Intimately meaning they cannot be separated at all. And while we speak about inward and outward, we do it as two faces of one single reality. And so there are certain elements in this, in the 20th century in particular, which is where we are going to focus, which is when Freemasonry starts affecting Islam. Perhaps a little bit earlier, one can go to the middle of the 19th century, but I'm going to just try to bring it into that turning part of the century and that early part, because this is when everything starts to go wrong. And there are certain characters that they are very critical to understand Freemasonry and how they attempted to form Islam. So I have brought with me this famous book, the Esoteric Deviation, because this is the book I wrote in my attempt to make sense of what had happened to Islam in the 20th century. As you can see, it took me quite a bit. In fact, it's a lot easier, all this, but I thought of presenting this argument especially for our Muslim brothers in France, because they had been subject to these issues for longer than anybody, and many of the Muslims have come now to France and they have got confused with some of these characters. I start with one key character in France, which is René Guénon. René Guénon is the foremost exponent of the traditional or Sophia Perennis doctrine, and I'll explain this. The idea of Sophia Perennis is the idea that all the religions, I will try to explain graphically because I think it's the easiest way, they come from a single root. You know, so there's the Sophia Perennis here, and then you spring out one religion, another religion, another religion, another religion, another religion, another religion, from the Sophia Perennis. So if you go back to the root of all the religions, you find the Sophia Perennis. Now, the idea here is that what you have to do is to dismantle all the religions, go back to the origin, and in the origin you find the perfection of the religion. So in other words, something in the nature of syncretism, just to find out what is the common elements between all of them, and try to go to the core, the esoteric part of all the religions, and then you arrive to the esoteric, the Sophia Perennis. Our viewpoint is different. Our viewpoint of religion is that the religions have evolved until they perfect themselves. It's a tree that goes levels, that goes one above the other until it reaches Islam with Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And that is the perfect religion. What they call Sophia Perennis is, this is our, for that's the perfect religion. For us, Islam is the perfect religion, as stated by Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam at the time of his death in Medina. That is the perfect religion. And everything else has been, they come from prophets, so the source is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they do not stand. There's no Sophia Perennis there, but only different evolution in the affairs of man, that they have gone corrupted. So if you take the corruption version of each one of these religions and you try to condensate that, you don't arrive to anything of any value. Is by the perfection of the newest prophet and the latest one. That's how you find. That's how you find the purity of the religion. Okay? So the idea of Sophia Perennis naturally invites to the fact that as long as you follow the Sophia Perennis, you can be Christian, you can be that, because that's only the exoteric part of the religion. What really matters is this stuff. You follow? Yeah. Now, this is kufr. End of the story. Okay? The way René Guénon talked about this matter is, he called it the unanimous tradition. The unanimous tradition is like, each one is a tradition according to him. And then the unanimous tradition is like the heart of what unifies all of them. He became a Muslim. And he was called Abdul Hadi. And he claimed to become the Muqaddam of Sheikh Abdul Rahman al-Kabir in Egypt. Although there are some of his key disciples that says that René Guénon never presented himself as a Muslim. So there are some people who says he only did it in order to fulfill the obligations he had according to this unanimous tradition that requests, invites people to join the religion. He never mind. He apparently he got married in 1912, and in the same year he married in the traditional Catholic manner. And in the same year, and he became a Freemason in the Teba Lodge, associated to the La Grande Loge de France, of the ancient and Scottish rite. I'm going to read you some selection of the things that he says, just to give you an idea of where do they stand. All Orthodox traditions is a reflection, and we could say a substitute, for the primordial tradition. The unanimous tradition, the primordial tradition. Primordial, I think, is the word he uses. He says, the conscience is the essential unity of all traditional forms. So this is again a referral to something esoteric that gathers everybody. It is interesting to highlight that the Hindu tradition and the Islamic tradition are the only ones that explicitly affirm the validity of all the rest of Orthodox religions. That's interesting, but untrue. They loved to use the Hindu stuff because it's, as you know, there's no Hindu religion. There's in India you have 10,000 Hindu religions. Each one has a different one. The number of gods is impossible to count. the rites are completely different from people to people. The people who created Hinduism is the Europeans. They went there, they had fun with all these lovely stories, and they just they codify in a kind of religious format what otherwise it was an incomprehensible mess up in the name of Hindu. Writing in relation to these matters, he says Sanata Dharma is nothing but the primordial tradition. Sanatana Dharma is nothing but the primordial tradition. Sanatana is equivalent to the Latin perennis, is far from being considered equivalent to Dharma. But Sophia is far from it. So the whole idea is Sophia perennis is not a philosophy, that is to say, a particular conception, more or less limited and systematic, whose author is, or that individual, but the common base from where all the philosophies proceed, in that in which they are valid. But we should not confuse wisdom, Sophia, with the aspiration towards it, or the search for it, philosophia. I don't want to bore you too much with this. It's just to show you a little bit some illustrations of how they speak about this matter. In Études Traditionnelles, he writes, Études Traditionnelles is one magazine dedicated to esoteric Freemasons. He says, the holy word, or the lost word, that is to say, the name of the great architect of the universe.